The playoffs have gotten underway, and arguably more so than ever before, every team that made it to the big dance believes they have a realistic shot of making a deep playoff run regardless of their seeding. The level of parity in the NBA is better than ever before, and the unpredictability of it is what makes it so fun for us, the fans and viewers. But with that being the case, it also means that every team has their own set of flaws that are capable of being exploited. This brings us to part 2 of today's topic, as we actually started things off in my last video, so if you missed that, be sure to go watch it after you watch this one. But basically, we're going through every single NBA playoff team, identifying their biggest issue that could hold them back from making a playoff run. Last video we went through the teams in the Eastern Conference, so today we're finishing it off by going through the teams in the Western Conference. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but also very much appreciated. Now with that being said, let's begin. Starting with the 1 seed Oklahoma City Thunder, their biggest issue is their inexperience. The Thunder are one of the most well-balanced teams in the league on both ends of the floor, and their ability to transition from being a rebuilding group to a legitimate contender finishing atop the Western Conference obviously deserves a ton of credit, but year after year, we see how valuable prior playoff experience is for teams, and the Thunder just don't have much of it. Young teams on the rise always come in hungry to prove themselves, but there are just certain things about playoff basketball you can't learn until you experience it for yourself for the first time. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Lou Dort are really the only main guys on this team with prior playoff experience, and it came during the bubble for both of those players, which hardly even counts as real playoff experience since there were no fans in the building back then. So while they have the talent to win the West, they're going to have to go through a lot of more experienced contenders to do it, which will definitely be tough. Next up is the 2 seed Denver Nuggets, and their biggest issue is their lack of depth. The Nuggets are the defending champions, looking poised to defend their title with another deep run because they brought back their entire starting lineup from last season, but their depth leaves a lot to be desired. Christian Braun, Reggie Jackson, and Peyton Watson are the 3 guys they'll be leaning on the most off the bench, and while they are all capable of impacting the game in different ways, none of them are necessarily game changers. Watson is a terrific defender but struggles as a perimeter shooter. Reggie Jackson is a decent backup ball handler but is wildly inconsistent, and Christian Braun is an energetic young player that plays with a ton of energy, but is only really ready for about 10 minutes a night, so a lot of the heavy lifting will be on their starting lineup to defend their crown. Up next is the 3 seed Minnesota Timberwolves, and their biggest issue is their lack of offensive firepower. The Timberwolves were the league's #1 ranked defense this season, which can definitely take them a long way. Being able to get stops consistently is huge this time of year, but on the flip side, there are a lot of teams capable of scoring a ton of points in the West this season, and the Timberwolves have the worst offensive rating of the 8 playoff teams in the Western Conference. Anthony Edwards is emerging into a legit superstar in front of our very eyes this year, but then after him it becomes shaky, as Karl Anthony Towns should be a reliable scorer but is coming off of an injury, Rudy Gobert's offensive struggles in the playoffs are well documented, Jaden McDaniels is a below average shooter, and Mike Conley at this point in his career is not putting up a ton of points either, so they're going to need guys like Naz Reid and Nickeil Alexander-Walker to give them a jolt of offense when they sub in, if they want to go far. Next up is 4 seed Los Angeles Clippers, and their biggest issue is Kawhi Leonard's knee injury. Sure, there are a few things regarding their roster makeup and their deficiencies on the court in certain areas, but their most obvious issue right now is the fact that their best player is out injured, and his status is up in the air moving forward. Leonard missed the last 8 games of the regular season due to inflammation in his knee, and then he also missed Game 1 of the series against the Mavericks. The Clippers held strong in Game 1 without him winning that game, but this is a Clippers team that has championship aspirations, and if Kawhi returns to the court and still looks hobbled out there, then their ability to make a run takes a huge hit. He's still their best defender and their #1 scoring option, and relying on James Harden to pick up that slack with his roller coaster ride of playoff experience isn't a winning formula, so they need Kawhi at their best. Next up is the 5 seed Dallas Mavericks, and their biggest issue is their lack of secondary playmaking. The Mavericks have two studs running the show, with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving being two of the best shot-creating talents in the entire league. The ball will be in their hands a lot in this postseason, and both of them have shown that they can do a lot of damage together game to game, but the issue falls on the rest of the team to pick up some slack. No matter how many points Luka and Kyrie generate, they can't consistently win games playing 2v5. Tim Hardaway Jr. started the year red hot as a bench scoring threat, but he's coming into the playoffs in a worrying slump, and PJ Washington has been a solid addition midway through and quickly developed chemistry with this group as a slasher, but he hasn't been a consistent shooter for them yet. Then the rest of the guys in this lineup pretty heavily require the playmaking of Luka and Kyrie to get shots off, so it's just a lot of sitting on the shoulders of the team's stars to make a run. Next up is the 6 seed Phoenix Suns, and their biggest issue is how turnover prone they are. The Suns made the biggest splash of the offseason coming into this year when they traded for Bradley Beal to form a big three with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, and while they experienced a lot of injuries throughout the regular season, they're all healthy now and are expected to contend for a championship with all of that star talent they have. The biggest thing that has held them back from doing that has of course been the fact that they commit way too many turnovers per game and then end up shooting themselves in the foot as a result of it. The Suns commit more turnovers per game than every single other playoff team this year in either conference, which is of course not a stat that you want to be leading in, and it probably has something to do with the fact that they don't really have a real point guard in their rotation to run the offense. Devin Booker and Bradley Beal share primary ball handling duties despite both of them being more natural two guards, and they also don't have a real point guard capable of subbing in off the bench either, so while these guys can all score in bunches, they're lacking a natural playmaker to set them up and make their lives easier. Next up is the 7 seed Los Angeles Lakers, and their biggest issue is their lack of bench scoring. Admittedly, this video is being made after a couple of playoff games have already gone down, and the results early on only further prove this point, but it was also a worrying issue coming into the series, so the writing was on the wall. Through 2 games against Denver in the first round, Taurean Prince is literally the only bench player for the Lakers that has scored a point for this team. He's a 3-and-D guy who checks in to spot up and space the floor, but besides that, it's been nothing but disappointment as Spencer Dinwiddie and Gabe Vincent have given them nothing. And finally, last up is the 8 seed New Orleans Pelicans, and their biggest issue is the fact that Zion Williamson is out injured. The Pelicans were looking like a group capable of cracking the top 4 in the West about a month ago, before sliding down into the play-in tournament, and then the worst thing possible happened there when Zion Williamson went down with a hamstring injury. With him at full strength, this Pelicans team can be dangerous, but without him, they have almost no shot of advancing. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think these teams' biggest weaknesses are. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.